Hello, everyone. Tonight, what we're going to do is take a look at a couple of really cool things to help you out if you do any kind of farming or landscaping work. So, what I want to talk to you tonight about specifically is how the use of drones can help save your crops or give you a better yield. So, as you can see from the image on the screen, um, this is one of the things that a drone can do better than a human can. And that's cover a large amount of territory in a short amount of time. So if I kick this up to the larger map, you can see the area around where the photographs were taken. Each one of these little spots is a photograph that was taken, and the batteries are the amount of battery life. But what I want you to take a look at here on the next page, we have it here. 165 photographs were taken in 17 minutes. Now, think about that. This is about 7 acres. The drone flew 8,000 feet in 17 minutes and was able to gather pictures of everything beneath it. Got another example here that we can take a look at. Same area. This took 20 minutes, but took 346 photographs. Now, the reason for that is this was at 190 feet. And if we take a look at the other photograph, this was at 299 feet. So obviously, the lower you are, the less amount you're going to get in a single shot. But the closer you are to what you're taking a picture of. The reason I'm at these altitudes is my trees that I have around the property are at about 100 feet tall. So I have to go above those to make sure that I've got enough room for the drone to fly. And these are automated flights. Now, another reason that the drone can do this better than we can is we'd have to walk through the crops and look at them, and that disturbs the crops. With a drone, you're not disturbing the crops because you're flying well above them. And the third thing is, a drone doesn't get fatigued with all that green. So if you can imagine yourself walking through your field to see how everything's doing, after a while you just assume green and you might not be able to see those subtle changes or other things that might indicate that there's something that you need to do. So what the drone does is it flies over and records images, as you can see some of these thumbnails below here. And we then take all those images and put them together into a larger image. And then we process them. And there's three models I'm going to discuss tonight, which are all very similar and use visual light, red, green, and blue, to figure out the health of the plant. So let's start with what an image is. Every one of these images is a set of pixels. So the one we're going to look at tonight is 4,048 pixels by 2,699. That means on the x-axis, there's the 4,048 pixels, and on the y-axis, there's 2,699 pixels. Now, if the image were purely black and white, pixel would basically be 1 or 2, or 1 or 0. It either has the color of white or it has no color at all. If it were a gray image, it would have a little more variety to it because you'd have to get those individual images of gray. Color images have a value of the amount of red, green, or blue associated with that individual pixel. By knowing these values, we can calculate the health of the vegetation. Now, the values will range from 0, in absence of that color, to 255. So let's take a quick look at what that looks like. Here are the color values. So 255, 255, and 255 is white. 0, 255, and 0 is pure green. That's as green as you're going to get. And we'll go over where some of these others came from and what they mean and what VARI is. So let's take a look at what we do with an image. We have that series of images, and then we assemble them into a larger image of an entire field. So what we're going to take a look at is this stock image of a field. You can see some of it's green, some of it's more yellow. Now, what are we going to do with that information? Well, we're going to run some calculations. So there's our image, and we're going to take a look at a pixel. Right, so I run this, and it comes back with 197, 71, 86. So if we take this number and we put it into a website that will allow us to get a color based on that number, we get that yellow. So that pixel is one of the yellow colors. Okay? The three types of calculations that I'm talking about tonight are VARI, and VARI stands for Visible Atmospherically Resistant Index. And what you've got here is you take the amount of that green value, which is 171, subtract the red value, which is 197 in this case, divide that by the green plus the red, so that's 171 plus 197, but you take away the blue, and so you're subtracting 86. In this case, that gives us a vary of minus 0.09. Now, VI green is similar to it, but you'll notice it does not use the blue at all. So VARI is good for getting chlorophyll. VI green is good for looking at a forest over 10 to 30 days and seeing if there's any degradation to it. And VI green in this case would give us a very similar number of minus 0.07. Our third index here, GLI, is good for doing rice leaves and pine trees, which is great for me. You'll notice it uses blue on both the top and bottom part of the equation, and it multiplies the green by 2. This gives an index here of 0.9. The GLI is not going to go negative. VARI and VI green are going to go on both halves of that equation. Take a quick look here. This is where the information is coming from. This is a ResearchGate article. It talks about the different types of indexes, and there's your Visible Atmospherically Resistant Index. GLI is your green leaf index. And Visible Atmospherically Resistant Index is green, is the VI green. Now, what's important about these is they only require red, green, and blue. So any camera can be used to record plant. Let's take a look at a different set of pixels. Now, bet you can guess what we're going to see when you see the VARI index is 0.28, VI green is 0.18, and GLI is zero point 0.2. This is most likely a very much greener part of the image. So we'll go back to our converter, paste in our value, and there's the green. So what we're going to do now is let's look at the code real quick. Again, it's just these simple equations that are done, but you run them pixel by pixel. So if we were going to use this in the real world, there's a couple of ways we can do it. There's some commercial ways that we can do it, and there's some other ways that we can do it on our own. So here's a program that does what the other did, but it says, okay, if it's above 0, just put the pixels the way they were. If it's below minus 0.51, make it red. And if it's between minus 0.51 and 0, make it yellow. What that looks like is we'll look at our original image here. There it is. And now we look at the image that we got from doing the calculations and coming up with that new image. And this is what we see. So the difference between the two is how much more yellow the yellow is because of where it falls in that calculation for VARI. Now, when I say there's a commercial way to do it, I'm going to pull up Pix4D. This is not the same image. This is actually my property. This is the image that you saw the overflight path from. So if we do just VARI, we get this kind of image from it. You'll see some of it's green, and that's pretty much showing you where the trees are, although the road comes up green. The yellow would be areas that are of concern, and the red are the really bad areas, the things that really need to be taken care of. From that, and this is what it looks like when we uh, connect all those photographs into that larger image that I talked about. We can put it into zones. Now, you'll notice that there are changes that we can do over here to change the zones. But what this would mean to you as a farmer is the red areas are the ones that you would have to put the most amount of resources into. Orange, little less, little less, little less. These are pretty good. So, the way it works here for Pix 4D fields is you can actually put in your specifics about the fertilizer that you're using, and it will calculate out how many units, what amount of fertilizer you need. And if you'll notice here, it talks about the amount of area that's under each of those sections. So I have a large amount of area under the red and a very small amount of area under the green. And it's giving you the average values from VARI on it. And then the surface model gives you the altitudes of things. So that's what a commercial product would give you. And commercial products can also be used for things such as you have the zones, and if you were big enough that you have, for example, a fleet of drones that could go out and put pesticides out or spray fertilizer onto plants, you could use this to map out the flights for those. So that's what I mean from a commercial perspective. If you aren't a commercial entity, you have two choices. You can try to do it yourself by flying a drone over and getting the images and running them through these calculations. Or you can hire somebody who not only will do the drone flights, but has access to one of these commercial pieces of software to give you those good results. All of this means that your resources are not being wasted anywhere. They're actually being used where they need to be used. And you get an idea, depending on how often you do this, of how often it needs to be done so that you're catching things before they actually become an issue. So things on the low scale are unhealthy. Now, the thing to keep in mind here is the amount of green could be dependent upon the type of plant that you're growing. Okay, so um, when I put those numbers together, I base them off of numbers that I got from the image that you saw. So then I took that 0.51. I said, well, I don't want anything that would be that color. And my zero is yellow. So anything that's yellow to there, I want it to be that yellow color. Highlight the fact that that's yellow, and for what I'm looking at, it should be green, dark green. That's not healthy. Anything below this 0.5. Now remember, this scale goes from -1 to 1. So anything below minus point 0.5, I want it to be red. That's stuff I need to take care of immediately. Now, I didn't do it as nuanced as the Pix 4D was. Pretty much, here's my highest priority, here's my next priority, here's the stuff I don't have to worry about on this site. But again, the goal is to fly over with a drone and get the information that you need so that you have the best yield that you can get and that your resources are used in the most appropriate manner. Now, another thing I want to talk about quickly here is I took pictures right now, and you may say to yourself, well, there's no plants growing on your property other than the trees, which is true. But this is where it becomes something for the landscapers. As I zoom in here, I can see trees that are down. So if I were a company that was offering landscaping services, these are the areas that I would go grab trees. And by looking at this photo, I can see how much effort there's going to be and how much wood there is. Now, as the homeowner, this is showing me what I'm going to need to do over this year and next year, etc. And these images actually become basically a checklist for me to see where I need to go. And because I've got the drone, I can overfly at any time. But by doing it this time of the year, I can see things that I would not be able to see when all these trees have leaves on them. So for a landscaper looking to see what trees are damaged or what trees need to be chopped up, this is the perfect time of year to be doing these kinds of surveys to see what needs to be done. There's a broken tree there, there's another broken tree over here. So I can see what I need to take care of and where. This is another broken tree. I've got trees down all over the place. So from a landscaping perspective, this gives you a great idea of what needs to be done for landscaping. And then when you've got these other images that you can use to show where there are things that need to be taken care of on the property or with the crops, then this gives you a nice quick way to see what's going on. And like I said, overall flight time was about 17 minutes. Fixed 4D fields, in theory, would allow us to do this stuff within a couple of minutes on the laptop and come up with an idea right then and there. Um, Otherwise, I would take the information back and run it through and come up with images. To do this full image here, we'll talk about next week when I talk about other ways to capture the images so that you can do them yourself and not have to rely on these outside faculties. Again, your best bet is going to be to find somebody who is a drone pilot, is commercially licensed, is insured. Make sure that those two things are verified, and they have access to something like Fix 4D Fields, which is $125 a month. So it's not a lot of money, but it gives you a lot of information. But if you're partnering with somebody who's flying the drone and they throw in that Fix 4D as part of the package, so much the better. But next week, what we're going to do is look at how to capture these images with the drone or with the camera, for that matter, and how you can then use off the shelf uh, things to put those images together to give you the overall survey of the land that you've overflown, about how long that takes, and what you can get from it just from that perspective without running the VARI or any of the other indexes against it. And we'll also talk about running those indexes again next week. So that's what I got for you this week. I hope it's of interest to you, and I hope that you got something out of it. My goal here is we have a evolving climate right now, and making sure that we can provide crops of all sorts for everyone with this evolving climate is going to be very, very important. This is just a tool that we can use to quickly and easily get a view of what the crops look like so we can make sure that we don't have as much loss or that things don't progress beyond where we can fix them. So we can get in there, see where the resources need to be applied, apply those resources, and get on with the crops. So that's what I got for you this week. Next week, like I said, we'll talk about overflights and how all that works. And until then, have a great week.